Good evening, Year 11. This is your night before news for Maths Paper 1 Higher, which will be tomorrow morning. I guess just get right into it. You're most interested in knowing what's going to come up in the exam tomorrow. Now, the unfortunate thing is that anything could come up from your study of maths throughout your whole time at school. There is no direction given for the exact content for each paper, so anything is kind of fair game. Now, what we do have with paper 1 is that it's non-calculator, so we can make some guesses about topics that are more likely to lend themselves to being non-calculator than calculator, but a bit of a health warning, it is not a guarantee. Because they can do things with calculator topics to make them non-calculator friendly, so it's just some suggestions if you were lacking a bit of direction tonight or you wanted somewhere to focus your revision. So likely non-calculator topics, we've got 4 operations, so that's including decimals, so multiplying, adding, subtracting, dividing, possibly a standalone question at the start of the paper, or it's going to be embedded into other topics. Fractions, multiplying, dividing, adding, subtracting, with mixed numbers, improper fractions, making sure you're familiar with how to manipulate those without a calculator. Same thing with percentages. Estimation, so if you've got a question, it's quite typical and common sometimes for people to miss that it's an estimation question, but please do check if it says that. If the numbers and the calculations are looking actually quite horrible, just go back and have another read. Did it actually want you to estimate? And then when you're estimating, remember you are allowed to make those numbers quite nice, so rounding to one significant figure, if that's appropriate to do, that is fine. Indices, so in particular index laws, negative and fractional indices. It could be that you're just simplifying. It could be that you are evaluating, so making sure you can use those. Loads of algebra, so simplifying, expanding, factorising, solving, rearranging, particular forming and solving, so maybe there's a context in the question where you have to form the equation before you can solve it. Ratio is actually a huge strand in maths, so you're likely to see ratio in this paper, and probably in all of the papers too. Surds is more typical that this would be a non-calculator type of question, so if it's going to come up, it's probably tomorrow, because obviously when you have a calculator, it's quite easy because you can just type it in. So without your calculator, you need to be able to manipulate those surds, simplify them, and rationalise denominators. And then exact trig values. The only time that can be asked is in paper 1, because otherwise you can just pop it in your calculator. So you've either got these memorized or you know that you can generate the table of values. So practicing how to do that so that in the moment you can call up that table of values, that's going to be really important. Again, so this is just now analysing those really high frequency topics that come up year after year after year. So I'd make sure that we were very familiar with algebraic fractions, simultaneous equations. That could be linear or it could be non-linear. Highest common factor and lowest common multiple, so including product of primes in there as well. Anything to do with angle facts, so parallel lines, angles in polygons, round a point, etc. Anything to do with angles, and actually quite common that might lend itself into a forming and solving algebra question. Plotting graphs, you've got linear graphs, quadratic graphs, cubic graphs, reciprocal graphs. You could be plotting them, you could be interpreting them, so finding turning points or finding points of intersection with the axes, finding solutions, finding roots. Error intervals, so going on with rounding, that could be rounding or it could be truncation, so making sure you're familiar between the two. Transformations are extremely common, so rotation, reflection, enlargement, translation, circles, sectors, volumes, anything to do with that could all be in terms of pi, so you don't need your calculator in order to do that. Possible then, probability, it's quite common, likely to be a probability question in there somewhere. Pythagoras, area, statistics, so statistical representations, different types of graphs, cumulative frequency is very common. You've got box plots, and more. Obviously, lots of stuff could come up. I'm just looking at those highest frequency topics where if you have no direction or idea what you're going to do this evening, narrowing in on some of these is probably the right thing to be doing tonight. As we've not finished the course, there is that warning that there is a chance there could be some topics in the paper that we have not yet learned, and that is absolutely fine. You're not expected to get those questions correct, so don't be alarmed if that comes up, and you're equally not expected to, and you are advised not to try and go away and learn something new this evening tonight. Absolutely not the right thing to do. Focus on what you have been taught and revising that to the best of your ability. So yeah, don't worry if that happens. You're not expected to get those correct. So what should you do tonight? Specific topics, you've got Sparks Maths, you can go to independent learning, check that you're on GCSE, and you can type in any topic to look up and revise. You've got exam queue, so if you just Google the website, it'll be one of the first results. Check that you're on higher, check that you've got it set to non-calculator questions, and then you can search for any topic. And then each topic has a question and also a mark scheme with it, so you can see exactly how you've done. You've got Maths Genie, so if you give that a Google, you can click on GCSE revision in one of two places, and you get a list of topics to revise. For Corbett Maths, just Google that, click on videos and worksheets, and again you get a list of questions of which you can revise. Several points down the page there is a click here for answers button, and if you click that it will take you to the answers. And you've also got First Class Maths, which is a brilliant website. So again, if you Google that and that comes up, click on revision, click on GCSE Ed Excel, and again you get a list of topics. It's not as big a list as things like Corbett Maths or Maths Genie, but what is on there is really good. If you want to do practice papers, I would suggest going to Maths Genie again and clicking on the GCSE papers section, and then have a good look around on there and the different type of past papers. Everything is on there. Just check you're looking at higher and not foundation. So tomorrow morning the hub will be open from 7 AM. Please bring in some questions that you haven't been able to answer for your own revision, because there'll be loads of maths teachers in the hub that can help you with those. And then we'll move to revision in the conservatory or canteen area, and what you'll be given is like a breakfast maths warm-up grid, which is just an example of one on the screen now. Okay, good luck with all of your revision, and we're looking forward to seeing you in the morning.